Alright guys, it's going to be an interesting ride to work today. Get a little bit of rain, get a little bit of torque, and not a lot of traction. Wish me luck. Alright, last upgrade to the frame, or modification, mainly because I'm picky. I am getting rid of this cross member and replacing it with a straight section of tube. Mainly because I think it looks better. So, let's get to work. Pressure. You primed the oil system this morning. It's got coolant in it. It's got fuel with no leaks.
I think it's got coolant.
I checked. When we put the distributor in, where was the crankshaft? 1842?
Nope, 1542.
2542. Engine 78?
Going backwards.
And was it supposed to be at 0, or was it supposed to be at 10, or what did the instructions say for the, when we drop the distributor in?
It just said top dead center. So you're 1 mark away from top dead center, right? Going there.
Pump that cap. Not even close to 180, that's like 90 out. Sorry, Pat, I don't remember it.
Ready? Holding at 180 and then all of a sudden it started jumping, so.
I got pumped fast though. Let's verify spark timing, but I guess now we'll let it cool down for a second. But it runs. That's progress. So as you probably just saw in the video, we got the Lincoln fired up for the first time, which is awesome. It's cool to hear that big block running. This, remember, came to us as a unfinished project, so it's our responsibility to fix a lot of things. And on the first fire up, everything went pretty good, but there's a few new things that we've figured out that we have to fix. We get some coolant leaks, the thermostat appears to be stuck. I guess that's mainly it. Two things. There's a few hoses we have to move around, which I kind of thought was funny. The previous builder, however they routed them, specifically the transcooler. As you can see, there's two AN lines. The black braided lines right there, almost touching the headers, which is not a good thing. And of course that little, that's a battery cable there with the like aluminum heat wrap stuff on it. We're gonna redo that as well because headers, they're made from, or the exhaust runs through them, it gets very hot and you do not want transmission fluid, hoses, and headers in the same space. So we're gonna take care of that. But it's just another one of the things on the list. Lincoln-wise, we got most of the air suspension stuff complete. The EFI is started and it's not 100% installed. We still have to do the whole tidying up of the wires. But anyway, that's the Lincoln. The chassis over here, I know I said it was done in the last video, but there's a few more odds and ends I wanted to do. We have the new straight cross member here, which that makes me ever so happy because the old one, well, it was not straight. It had a bunch of kinks and bends in it, and it had the shock brackets on it and the exhaust hanger and fuel tank brackets, which of course I could have cut all those things off because we're not utilizing them and just left the cross member in there. But to me, I like this much better. So because I like it, I'm taking the time to do it. And it still looks factory because it pokes through the outside of the frame. It is welded on both sides. I will install some sort of a drive shaft loop before this is all said and done because we're gonna need those probably on the back and somewhere once we get the transfer case installed, I'll figure out where the front drive shaft loop needs to be. Still don't know if we're gonna run a two-piece or a one-piece drive shaft. We'll figure that out. And also the plates. I think I mentioned this months ago when I very first bought this frame, but I do plan on boxing the inside of it. So I know I said the chassis is done, but it's technically not done. And there's going to be a million little things that we need to add. And I want to get, this is going to be a sort of long-term project because I want to get the entire chassis mocked up down to the last nut and bolt and bracket. And so I'm going to put the batteries back here, or well, I might have two, maybe one, we'll see. Batteries will go back here, possibly a transmission cooler, but then I want to run, the fuel lines. Like I'm going to make probably a bracket somewhere back here for a pump. If I run an external one, we can run an internal one with this, but for our power level, I might be running like a big brushless pump back here. I think I've got a dash 10 or a 16 feed line. So anyway, that motor's gonna need all the fuel, but I wanna have hard lines run for everything, brake lines I'm gonna run, and every little tab and bracket will be, whether it's drilled and tapped or a nut insert or whatever it is, I wanna have that all done before we do any sort of sandblasting and painting. boxing plates I am going to do, but in a factory style with kind of like oval holes in them, or maybe some triangular shaped cutouts. I'll figure that out at a future point. But yeah, this is sort of like the chassis for now. I think I'm going to park it at the house while I get the cam swap, cam swap and stuff done on the ugly truck, which it is now officially in the shop, so we can start work on it. And let's see. Oh, there's 2 questions you guys had posted on, quite a you guys had asked on the chassis of this. Number 1 about the spring sliders, 2 about the anti-roll bar. Spring sliders, the question was, well, how is the power going to get transferred to the chassis if the rear of the spring is allowed to move? Well, on any leaf spring vehicle, I don't care if it has a slider like this or if it has a swing shackle like that. I'll put a little insert shot in there to show what a swing shackle looks like. But in any case, the power is never transferred to the vehicle through that back point. All that does is hold up the back of the vehicle and allow the leaf spring to grow and shrink, because as a leaf spring, compresses with a suspension, it gets longer. It's an arc. You compress an arc, it gets into a straight line, therefore it becomes longer. And I can kind of visualize that just by pressing on the back. You can kind of see how that rear spring pivot point gets, it goes back and forth. And with a bunch of weight on here, that'll go, maybe not all the way to the end because you don't want it to bottom out, but it'll go almost all the way. Anyway, the power is transferred through the front pivot point, so that just helps the spring stay in the same plane as it works. The anti-roll bar. You guys asked, why do we need an anti-roll bar? Mainly, number 1, not because we're going to be taking corners at high speed or anything like that. It's not an anti-roll bar designed for, pro touring type stuff. It's designed because on a chassis like this and a lot of drag cars, whenever you launch, the rear right of the chassis has a tendency to want to kind of twist up. And that's mainly because the engine, as it's rotating, it's lifting on that motor mount and pushing down on that one. Incorrect. I actually had the sides backwards. It is the left that wants to kind of lift and the right that kind of pushes down. Concept is the same, angles were backwards. Oh, and by the way, as you can see, I have my laptop back up and running. We are charging. This is the little lightning bolt. So Apple claims that it was just the charger that I was using, but weirdly enough, after we got back from the Apple store, my original charger still worked. So that's head scratcher. Anyway, you'll know what that was all about if you watched the last video. Back to that. So there's a twist force that the chassis sees, and you want the truck to launch straight. And so the anti-roll bar, which I remember it's not welded fully, but when the anti-roll bar is hooked up, sort of kind of, something like that, the anti-roll bar will prevent that twisting force from happening. We also have Caltracs we can adjust and kind of preload one or the other. And I will freely admit, guys, I'm not a drag racer. I think this will all work, but I mainly spend hours and hours and hours reading and seeing what other people do with, with their success. So I'm putting together a recipe that I have seen work, but time will tell how it works for me. So that's the anti-roll bar explained. That's the spring slider explained. We will have Caltracs installed. I just don't have them yet for this truck. Drive shaft loops will be installed. We'll wheel box the frame. We'll put a bunch more stuff back here to help weight bias. Oh, and that was another thing. People asked why I'm putting weight back there, because on the ugly truck down there, it's like 5,200 pounds, but I think 65 or 70% of it is up front and the back is very, very light. So I want to try to move as much weight to the back that I possibly can to, make it handle better, to make it launch better, and get it close to 50-50 as possible. That's what I think.
We got a new project.
All right, so I know I kind of promised you guys that in this video we would be bringing the ugly truck into the shop, which I did. It is right over there. And I also promised you that we'd be pulling the motor out to do a cam swap, which we will be doing. But first, there's a new project in the shop. It's not mine, unfortunately. This is a customer build, but we got some really cool stuff in store for it. I'm not going to spoil the surprise as to what we're doing, but first, would you just take a look at the truck, guys? This is my favorite body style, 99 to 02, just like the ugly truck down there. Except this one is not ugly. This one is really, really nice looking. Step side, two-wheel drive, single cab, kind of like the classic sport truck combo. I will say we are doing a bunch of suspension stuff to this, so I'm really, really pumped about it. It's a fun project, and maybe later on down the road we'll do some other stuff to it. But it's a really cool project, and this week it's just kind of got away from me. But we did get a few things accomplished. We got the Lincoln fired up for the very first time, which is cool. We have the chassis, which is now kind of jammed back in the corner here. We got the chassis a little bit closer to what's truly going to be finished with the cross member straightened out there. I got the ugly truck driven into work where very soon, hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll have some time to start on it. And a whole bunch of other just regular general automotive stuff behind the scenes. Let me know if you guys want to see more about what goes on day to day in the shop, just in terms of general repairs. Like, for example, we've got an alternator replacement, we've got a timing belt down there, you know, so not exciting stuff. This truck had some, I think, brakes and wheel bearings on it, and, you know, just, we're a mechanic shop. That's kind of what we do, and of course, on the side, we also do the fun stuff, which it's my favorite. Anyway, that's this week. It's come and gone. The time goes by quick. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you. Come back soon. Have a good one.